Hi all, welcome back to my channel. I want to share another sick and twisted story with you out of Detroit, Michigan, where a handyman prepping a rental home to go back on the market made a terrifying discovery. He was called to the home on Woodingham Street by the landlord on January 6th of 2025, and as he worked at the house, he noticed something that looked strange in the backyard behind the garage. He told police it looked like it could have been some sort of shallow grave. And when he went outside to investigate, nothing could have prepared him for what he found. As he approached the grave, he saw something sticking out. A foot. A child's foot. When he realized what he was seeing, he ran to call the police and notify the landlord of his grim and shocking discovery. When crime scene investigators dug up the grave, they found the body of a young boy with his hands and feet tied together. After further investigation, they found that the boy was 9-year-old Zamar King III, and Zamar had lived in the home with his mother, Brandy Pierce, and his 3-year-old little brother. Brandy had rented the house on Woodingham Street in 2024, and the landlord told police she only lived there a few short months with her 2 young sons. Then she left the home. But she didn't just leave the home. She fled the state with her 3-year-old son, leaving her unalived 9-year-old behind in a shallow grave at a rental home. Police were able to track Pierce to Cobb County, Georgia, where she was arrested and her 3-year-old son was taken away from her. Now, she's being extradited back to Michigan to face a charge of first-degree premeditated murder after police say her precious 9-year-old son was smothered and suffered neck compression. Police also reported that Pierce moved out of the rental home where she buried her son in October of 2024.
Well, turning now to a heartbreaking story on Detroit's West Side, where a mother is charged in the murder of her 9-year-old son. Zamar King's remains were discovered in the backyard of his home on Woodingham Drive near Outer Drive in Livernois last month. We've been following this story since those remains were found, but today we learn this tragic case stretches back even further. 7 News Detroit reporter Randy Wimbley has more from police, prosecutors, and a neighbor who knew the family.
Investigators believe they've gotten to the bottom of a grim discovery at this home on the city's west side. A little boy's body was found buried behind this garage. His mother is now accused of killing him.
I want to talk about a case of a young boy named Zamar King III.
Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy levying charges against 41-year-old Brandy Pierce for the murder of her 9-year-old son.
The cause of death found by the medical examiner was smothering and neck compression.
Authorities believe it happened in October of last year. Zamar's remains were not found until January 6 of this year, buried behind a garage at the rental home on Woodingham, where Pierce lived with Zamar and her other son, said to be 3 years old.
It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together and dug a hole in the background of the house on Woodingham, where she had been living for a short time.
Sources tell me Pierce moved into the house in early September of 2024.
It's sad, though. It's really sad that that happened.
One neighbor who did not want to be identified recalled an encounter with Pierce back in early November. She knew something was wrong. It was a month after authorities say Zamar was murdered.
As a woman, I'm like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, and then she would stand there, and then she would walk back. She'd stand there, walk back. So maybe something was wrong with her, I don't know, or maybe she was dealing with the issue of what she did.
Sources tell me the landlord went to the home to do some maintenance 2 days before Thanksgiving and found the home vacant. Pierce fled the state to Georgia with her 3-year-old son, where Worthy says he is now in foster care. Public records show Pierce was arrested in Brookhaven, Georgia, for cruelty to children in the first degree on December 20th. Pierce was arrested again in Cobb County, Georgia on January 10th for possession of a controlled substance and theft. Meanwhile, here in Wayne County,
we are charging Brandy Catrice Pierce today with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditation. Count 2 is homicide felony murder.
The Detroit Police Department works relentlessly on behalf of victims, and we are confident that there will be accountability for this.
Now, Pierce is in custody in Georgia. Investigators are working to get her extradited back here to Wayne County, where she will face those murder charges. I'm Randy Wembley, 7 News Detroit.
Randy, thank you. Such a tragic situation. If you ever suspect a child is being abused or neglected, please speak up. You can call the number on your screen to report your concerns to Child Protective Services. That number, 855-444-3911.
After the discovery of a child's remains in Detroit last month, prosecutors charging the mother with murder. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's get right out to Sean Lay at this noon hour at the home where that discovery was made. And Sean, where were police able to track this mother down?
In Georgia, we'll get to that. We're at the house here. There's a shallow grave right over there. People coming up to me, with me to take a look at it. It's breathtaking how awful this is. There are gasps. So how could this happen? How could this happen to a little boy? How can a mother allegedly do this to her 9-year-old son? Let's go to the video here and the new photos we have here. This is Brandy Pierce. People in the neighborhood know of her. Never saw her with any children, however. She's in custody down on Georgia. She was arrested on a couple of other different charges a few weeks ago. She's been hit here at home with multiple charges of murder, multiple charges of child abuse. It's just heartbreaking for allegedly killing her son, Zamar King, and burying the 9-year-old's remains at home here on Woodingham in Detroit. January 6th, a landlord saw a child's foot sticking out of the dirt, kind of on the side of the home here. Then the boy's remains were in a shallow grave discovered here, and they were there, prosecutors and investigators believe, since last October. Sources tell me Pierce allegedly put her son into a chokehold. The son was on the autism spectrum. Sources also tell me mom allegedly killed him, buried him, moved to Georgia. Here's more details from Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy.
It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together and dug a hole in the background of the house on Woodingham, where she had been living for a short time. She then put him in this hole and covered him with dirt. That after killing her son, she and her other son, who was 3 years old, moved to Georgia.
Back here live. So Brandy Pierce is under arrest in Georgia. At some point, she'll be extradited back here to Wayne County to face these murder charges. She's being held on separate charges there. 3-year-old son apparently is okay. He is now in foster care here in the Detroit area. There's a father of Zaire King, and he apparently had no contact with the son. And investigators were able to find him actually as early as this morning to let him know that these charges were coming and that his son was no longer with us. Lots more to break down here, guys. Just an awful case. We'll have much more at 5 and at 6. Back to you.
Oh, yeah, disturbing details of this case, to say the least. All right, Sean, we appreciate it.
Police have not yet said whether they have a motive for Zamar's loss of life, or whether his mother's cooperating with their investigation or not. But my guess is she's not. Anybody who's capable of doing that to their own child is evil and empty, and probably doesn't feel she owes anybody an explanation why. And that's fine, because none she gave would justify what she did to her child anyway. But even though she ended his precious life, he made sure she didn't get away with it. Now he deserves justice. And his rotten POS excuse for a mother deserves to rot in prison, then in hell. The Detroit DA held a press conference giving all the details of this sick case that I'll play for you so you can hear it all firsthand. And may Zamar King III rest in peace. Thank you as always for watching. I hope you know how much I appreciate the time you spend with me on my channel. Stay safe out there, and here is the press conference.
Thank you all for coming this morning. I have stood at this podium many, many times and talked about how horrific, tragic, and shocking certain cases are. Each time thinking there are some future alleged facts that could be worse than what I'm talking about at the time. knowing all the while, though, that there's always a worse set of facts on the horizon. Well, that day has come again. So I want to talk about a case of a young boy named Zamar King III. The alleged facts in this case are that we are announcing today. On January 6th of 2025, the Detroit Police Department was notified and summoned to a house on Whittingham in Detroit. They had been contacted by the landlord that owned that house. When he went to that house, the landlord contacted him when he went to that house to prepare it for a new tenant. That he called the police because he found a shallow grave in the backyard of the home on Whittingham. Upon arrival, the police were shown that grave where a human foot was sticking out of the ground. The foot was believed to be belonged to a small child. After an extensive investigation by quite a few agencies, and the chief will talk about that in a minute, the buried body was discovered to be 9-year-old Zamar King III. That the mother of young Zamar was 41-year-old Brandy Pierce. It's alleged that she killed him, and that the cause of death found by the medical examiner was smothering and neck compression. So I want to just further go ahead and tell you what other facts about this case. It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together and dug a hole in the background of the house on Whittingham, where she had been living for a short time. She then put him in this hole and covered him with dirt. That after killing her son, she and her other son, who was 3 years old, moved to Georgia, Cobb County to be exact. It was determined that this, in fact, happened sometime in October of 2024. That Zamar's mother, Brandy Pierce, is currently in Cobb County, Georgia, and we will be requesting her to be extradited back to Michigan. We are charging Brandy Catrice Pierce today with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditation, which carries a life without parole sentence, mandatory. Count 2 is homicide felony murder. Again, the mandatory penalty is life in prison without the possibility of parole. Our 3rd count is child abuse in the first degree, life or any term of years in prison. The first degree child abuse is the felony to make out the felony murder we are alleging. Count 4 is tampering with evidence, criminal case punishable by more than 10 years in prison. And the 5th one is interfering with, concealing and interfering with the death of an individual, 5 years, of course, that being 9-year-old Zamar King. As always, this defendant is presumed innocent unless or until proven guilty. I should tell you that Judge Aaliyah Sabri of the 36th District Court authorized these charges yesterday. And since we will be requesting extradition, we will notify you all when in fact she is back in the state of Michigan. So of course there is no next day for court. Again, let me just repeat, these charges and allegations are quite serious. They're deadly, they're shocking, every platitude that you can think of. But again, Ms. Pierce is still presumed to be innocent unless or until proven guilty. So I'm going to have the chief say a couple words to you, and then we'll answer some questions for you if you can.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. As Madam Prosecutor said, this case is rather shocking. In my 27-year career, I don't remember seeing anything like this, but I just want to thank, of course, Madam Prosecutor. I want to thank our law enforcement partners and everyone who helped out with this. The FBI was instrumental. Michigan State Police was instrumental in helping out as well, along with Cobb County and DeKalb County in the state of Georgia, their district attorney's office. And I just really want to express how proud I am of the hardworking men and women of the Detroit Police Department who helped bring this case to where it is today with these charges. I want to thank, of course, of our Major Crimes Division, the Commander Rebecca McKay, Captain Marcus Thurkill, Sergeant Ashley Peterson, Detective Kelly Lucy, who is here with us, Detective Lisa Johnson, and then the officer who is leading the case, Officer Isaac Yamas, and the members of the Western Squad. The Detroit Police Department works relentlessly on behalf of victims, and we are confident that there will be accountability for this. And as Madam Prosecutor said, of course, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Thank you much.
It seems to all of us who do this work on a daily basis that there's been just a large number of tragic cases that have happened to our children, worse than we have seen So it's our hope that we don't continue to see these, but I know that's probably false hope that I'm having. Before we go any further, I want to introduce Tina Ripley, who has worked together on this case very hard. She will be trying this case. Louisa Papoulis is to her right and your left. She is the Deputy Chief of the Special Victims Unit. Kelly Gleason is to my immediate left, and she is the Chief of the Special Victims Unit. And again, if the Chief would introduce his people that are standing here, that would be helpful.
Sergeant, I'm sorry, Detective Lisa Johnson is right here. Also, officer in charge of the case, Isaac Yamas. Kelly Lucy, detective. Ashley Peterson, Marcus Thurkill. Marcus is in the back there as well. And then Captain Rebecca McKay.
Okay. We'll take some short questions at this point, if you have any.
Not that you guys needed it to get a charging decision, but any indication as to why, a possible motive in this case?
You know, I don't talk about motives at the time. Any further evidence and charging decision will come out when we go to court. So, again, we can't comment on that at this time.
Has there been any communication with Samar's mother at all from you guys?
We did speak with his father yesterday, actually this morning, actually. So yes, we have had contact with the family, and the Detroit Police Department has had contact with the family as well.
So forgive me, I must be confused because I are not listening close enough, so I apologize, but the relationship of the suspect to the child?
Mother,
Okay.
yes. 41-year-old Brandy Pierce was his mother.
Okay.
And did Samar's father live in Michigan?
He lives in this area, yes.
And was he aware of his child's death?
Again, we talked to him. I don't think he was aware until recently, but again, we did speak with him this morning.
Thank you.
And we'll be speaking with him, of course, further as time goes on.
And those are just, oh, go ahead.
No, please, you got it.
Those are her two kids, Zamar and the 3-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Prosecutor, where's the 3-year-old right now? What's his status? What's his condition?
Again, he's with his mother in Georgia right now. And he was, and now he's in foster care here, I believe.
Can you
Foster
provide,
care locally?
In Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
are you able to provide any further information on the timeline of, you mentioned October, and then what,
That'll come out in court.
but in regard to how she ends up in Georgia with the other child, or with
All I can
family,
tell, all I can tell you at this point in time is she left shortly after she buried the body in the backyard and went to the state of Georgia.
So the landlord call to DPD was on January 6th, correct?
The landlord call was on January 6th. The police were notified. They immediately went out to the house on Whittingham. They were shown that grave by the owner of that particular property. They saw the foot sticking out of the ground, and it went from there. The chief notified me immediately upon that discovery.
she had rented that home?
I assume she rented it. I don't know.
Madam Prosecutor, just got this from a coworker, some indication that,
Who's talking? I can't see you.
Randy was.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you speak to this at all? I'll just read this verbatim. The source indicated yesterday that the mother claims they were horsing around and playing some sort of choking game.
I'm not going to comment on the evidence in the case.
Also, was this case file sent over to you guys more than once at all? And if so, what elements were needed to get to a charging decision?
Oh, we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. The police contact us when they have information. We talk often back and forth. And then once we get a completed investigation, we make a charging decision. Anybody else?
Do you know how long the mom had been living at that rental house?
For a short period of time. It's a very short period of time. Thank you, everybody. Oh, do you have something else?
Well, I think I know the answer to your question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In regard to my question is, do you, potentially this was accidental, somebody panics and then leaves the state, intentional? Are you able to offer anything in regard to intent or non-intent?
I am not going to do that. Yeah. You'll find out in court.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.